The Walking Dead last night, or if you're just joining, if you just watched it, uh, howdy to our friends in Knoxville. If anyone is joining from the UK or elsewhere in the world and you just finished the episode, please let me know. I would love to hear about your reaction. Sorry, I have sound working here. Let me turn this down. There we go. I was getting an echo. Who's going to get Lucille? That's the big question. That's the $1,000,000 question. Hello to our friends in Indianapolis. Howdy to, what is it, Gatlinburg? And we are here in New York, New York. The Walking Dead will be the end of me. Maryland is joining us. Anyone in Alexandria? It's getting close. All right, this is Ricky joining.
What's up, people?
And so,
You want to put a little more light on it?
do we have more light?
Maybe that worked a little bit.
It's a little nicer. All right, guys. Your brother lives in Alexandria. Safe and sound behind those walls? I gotta wonder, I know that they don't actually shoot in Alexandria, but I gotta wonder if it's becoming like a touristy place. I would assume that people stop and they take pictures next to the sign a lot.
Just gotta fix that a little bit, just to make it more even. There you go.
All right. So yeah, they still shoot in Georgia, despite the fact that in the story that the group has moved on to Alexandria, but they're still shooting in Georgia for now. So, anyway, guys, Daryl is not dead, right? Everyone freaked out whenever that blood smear splatter hits the camera. Of course, that looks bad.
Of course.
Of course.
For a split second, you thought it was over for him until they came on.
It says, sorry, I'm trying to read the names. They're so light. It was his shoulder. Yeah, it was his shoulder. And then, of course, did you hear what he said at the end? Yeah, so that's the thing. So I'm watching this, and for a second, I'm with everyone else, and I'm like, did they just kill Daryl? But then you hear the voice, you hear Dwight say, what does he say exactly? You'll be all right, right? So it's like they were trying to idiot-proof this. They knew that after the Glenn dumpster dive, like they did not want to do this to us again.
Well, they had such a backlash, so they didn't want to hear it again. They're like, all right, we'll just know that he got injured, but he's not dead.
Norman Reedus is starting his own TV show soon, but my understanding is that they've worked the schedule so that it's not going to interfere with The Walking Dead. Norman Reedus is doing like a motorcycle building show.
Yeah, I heard that he's not really like so much into The Walking Dead anymore. Is that a rumor or is that...
I don't know. Here's the thing with Norman Reedus. I've said this many, many times before. Keep him alive for now. That way he can meet Lucille. That's not what I've said many times before. What I've said many times before is that I do not think that they will kill Daryl until Norman Reedus decides he is done with The Walking Dead. This has to be a conscious decision from Norman Reedus because Daryl's action figures and the messenger bag with the wings on and everything, they sell merchandise, right? So The Walking Dead is not going to kill their most profitable character until Norman Reedus wants to go. So far, while he's been on The Walking Dead, Norman Reedus has been in 3 different movies. So he can work his schedule. He can work some magic there. And so I don't think he's going to go until he wants to go. But the question is, does Norman Reedus want to leave The Walking Dead? Because if so, next week could be his last episode.
Yeah, that'd be a shame,
But I don't know. I think that they shot him in the shoulder this week to make it really look bad for him, but I don't think he's the one to go next week. I have a feeling Carol will die. HG fanboy.
I don't know about that. I just think Carol's like in the zone right now. She's probably going to save the day. You know what's going to happen.
Well, I think what's going to happen, I don't know. It's entirely possible that Carol dies, but I don't expect that. I think what's happening is they've really built up this season this whole like Carol and Morgan thing where they started out like this, totally polarized, opposite ends of the spectrum. All life is precious and just kill and don't ask questions. And so what we've seen is Carol's actually reversed on this. And Carol doesn't want to kill anymore, but she still will if she has to. And Morgan, last night when he's with Rick, he says to Rick, I'll go find her, I promise, whatever. And Rick says, take the gun. And Morgan doesn't want the gun, but he takes the gun. And so my thing is, I don't think all life is precious hardliner Morgan would have even taken the gun. But the fact that Morgan took the gun tells me that Carol and Morgan are actually starting to meet in the middle. Carol will kill if she has to, but doesn't want to. Morgan, I think he's coming to terms with that as well. But we'll see, because I think what's going to happen is Morgan does find Carol, and I don't know. I don't know what happens from there, but I think it might be separate from the whole Saviors and Negan thing for a while. You think that Morgan's going to meet Lucille. So for those of you that are not familiar with Lucille, who comes up in conversations a lot, Lucille is Negan's barbed wire baseball bat. And he's fond of bashing people's skulls in with that.
And that's what they showed him, right, at the end?
Yeah.
In the promo?
Yeah, so if you've seen the preview for next week, they show Negan from behind, and then they show Lucille. So, no spoilers. Well, we're talking about the last episode, which was last night in the U.S., so if you haven't seen that, you should jump out of this stream, because we will be talking about that. And as far as next week, we'll be talking about the previews and everything they've released, but I don't know anything more than what's been released already. And I know what's happened in the comic books, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So
yeah, so you can see what happened last week. It drifted off the comics one
right.
now.
So last week they pulled a switcheroo.
Yeah.
You saw Denise get an arrow through the eye, but
instead of Abraham.
But that was in the comic books. That's an Abraham scene. So now Abraham is officially a wild card too. That's diverged from the comic books.
That makes me think maybe they're going to preserve him, because I think if they were thinking about killing him off, that would have been his out,
Well, the thing with Abraham is that he's a soldier, and they're going to war. So it feels to me like if they kill their soldier right before they go to war, that's kind of a waste of a soldier.
Yeah.
Like, at least have him die in battle if you're going to kill him. But too much going on with Abraham for him to die. I don't know. I think I would use the opposite logic. I would say that they've given him so much attention because they're building him up to die.
Yeah, it makes more of a dramatic ending to Abraham. He's just getting into Sasha. He's getting his things together.
And you see this, you saw this scene with Rosita and Sasha. Or Rosita was seeing him with Abraham, or Rosita was watching Abraham with Sasha on the whole watch thing. And so I think that it would make a lot of sense for them to leave that dangling, actually, if Abraham gets killed. And then these two past loves have to still live together, but they have this shared grief. I think that's good story potential. Yeah, too much would be unanswered. So, sorry. Missed a couple comments. I'm just scrolling through. So, yes. Rosita, I don't know what's going to happen with her. So far, what we've seen is that, yes, you're right. Someone must die in the Walking Dead season finale.
Someone will die. We know. I can guarantee you that someone will.
So let's figure it out. Who do we think is going to die, right? So the Saviors, they have Michonne, they have Glenn, they have Rosita, and now they have Daryl, and Dwight shot him through the shoulder, presumably the shoulder, and then says he's all right, so let's just assume that Daryl's fine, but maybe incapacitated. And yes, the cast has been talking about reading the script for the finale and how it made them sick. It was the most disturbing thing they've ever read. So
yes.
so we're in for a hell of a finale, and someone will die. And
considering how people have talked about how bad Negan is a character, I really expect them to go really far. Maybe even kill off Michonne. As a message to Rick.
It's
something
possible.
Like that. That's that could be.
But I think I would use the hello to our friends in France. I don't think Rick's going to die. And I also don't think Michonne's going to die. And I would say the same reason that I say Daryl's unlikely to die. And because Daryl sells action figures, Michonne sells action figures.
Yeah.
Who doesn't sell action figures? I don't know if anybody's buying a Glenn action figure.
No, and
not to the degree that they're buying these other ones.
That was maybe they will finally kill Glenn off.
I think they might. And I want to point out, Mnemonic 7, you said, I think the writers were too sensitive to the fans by making the guy say to Daryl, you'll be all right. So I have a theory about that. I think that what they did was they already had it planned this way, so that oh, you have a fan of your Ghostbuster shirt.
Oh yeah, the best. Not the new garbage movie that's got that. Did it come out yet? I don't even
Not
care.
not yet, not yet.
Anyway,
That's a whole other stream.
yeah.
We could talk about Ghostbusters, but yeah. So what happened? I think they probably planned last night's episode, or it was written in advance. There's a shot from Dwight. It goes to black. The blood splatters and everything. But I think they added the line.
It's so bad.
You'll be all right.
It's so bad. In reality, they never. Who would ever say that? Oh, you'll be all right as soon as he gets shot.
That's
Like, give me a
totally
break.
that's totally for the fans because they expect us to freak out and
It's from Twitter crying, you know.
it's from Twitter crime, but it's from the whole Glenn dumpster thing, which is
Of course.
still a sore spot for us. So it's like if they would have faked us out, if they would have made it look like Daryl died and then next week he's still alive, we would have revolted because we'd say, you already did this to us with Glenn, knock it off.
Listen, I don't need them to say you'll be all right. I mean, right away I'm like, all right, he got shot. It wasn't like they blew his brains out. Like
Yeah.
Glenn was literally, it looked like his guts were getting torn out.
Well, that's the
you
problem.
know?
That's
and
the
he's
problem.
screaming in
They made
agony.
it really look like Glenn was being killed to the degree that to have him survive is like just it's like a lie.
But not only that, they dragged it on for a month.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to do that next episode. They're going to go right into it. You're probably going to see Daryl and his arm getting all like, blood gushing out.
Yeah, he's going to be in bad shape. 3 strikes, you're out for Glenn. I honestly think that I've wondered about this. Everyone's been saying since the first thought of Negan entering the TV show that Glenn will die, and then when the dumpster thing happened, I thought there's no way they do it because it's too soon, right? The dumpster thing, they made a big deal of him dying, and it was over 4 weeks we didn't know, and so I thought, okay, well, I take this as evidence they're not going to kill him this soon after this dumpster thing. But after watching last night's episode, I'm not so sure because he looks like he's in a bad spot. And with Daryl having been shot, I don't think he's the one that's going to die. I think he's already had his pain and suffering. So that leaves...
And not only that, it's like at the end of the episode when you see Maggie in pain, like, who knows what's happening with the baby now, and if they kill Glenn off, and then, God forbid their baby, something happens with their baby, and now it's just...
that's
it's
a
just
little...
Maggie.
That's
it's a little
kind
weird.
of double traumatic.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
It's almost like, what if Glenn survives and everybody's celebrating, especially Glenn, that he survived, and then he comes home and he finds out about Maggie and she lost the baby. Like, okay,
well, Maggie will turn into like a Carol. She'll just flip a switch and she'll turn into some ultimate killer because she's got so
well,
much.
she already has been, but I think
Yeah.
that's her motherly instincts.
I guess.
Showed the bruises on her torsos in the shower. I didn't notice that.
Yep.
I didn't notice that from the previous episode
Mhm,
when she was captured.
Yeah.
Ah, good eye. I actually
saw that too. I didn't notice it. My wife did.
I just thought it's the normal thing. Like, sometimes pregnant women miscarry. But
Yeah.
I actually had forgotten about that. That's a really good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. But I think that I've been saying since they announced that, or since in the show they've said that Maggie was pregnant, I really don't think she's going to have this baby because babies in TV are hard work.
Yeah, it's just
The baby doesn't really advance the story much. We've seen Judith. I mean, what has Judith contributed to the story except basically sidelining Tyrese for his last season?
They're liabilities. I mean, you got to look for extra, goods and stuff, and baby formula. Where are they finding this stuff? And on there, who's babysitting? Carl all the time.
Well, that's the thing. Now they have Alexandria, so it's easier. So hello to, what is it? I saw, was it Frenai? Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the messages. Do we read the comics? I read the comics up to the prison, but I haven't read past that, but I'm pretty aware of what's happened since then, for the most part.
Yeah, I don't, but what happened? Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. No, I don't. I basically listen to Luke and Peter, our old, our
Walking
old
Dead
partner
buddy.
at Dead, and other. You hear it from other people on Twitter and stuff, and that's pretty much all I know too.
Glenn could have been hit by the bullet that hits Daryl. Explains, telling Daryl he'll be okay. I mean, I think you really don't want Daryl to suffer, so you're willing to sacrifice Glenn Tesson, however you pronounce that.
What's his name? He's really got Daryl's number. What's his name?
Dwight.
Dwight.
Okay, so just to finish the baby thing, and then back to Dwight, because we could talk about Dwight at length. I was just telling you earlier, I heard that apparently Judith, the baby that's played Judith, there have actually been 18 different babies. That's what I've heard. I didn't read this myself, so I'm not 100% sure. But I don't doubt that, because they have definitely cycled through babies in the show, baby actors. And also, whenever they cast children, especially that young, a lot of times they'll cast twins or triplets because of the laws. They can only have them on set for so long. So if they've recast like 6 times and it was triplets, that'll give you 18. But so that is my evidence for why Maggie will not have her baby. Because TV, that's why. You live in Russia, but you're buying the comics anyway. Do you import them from the U.S.? I'm wondering how you watch the show too. Where do you watch the TV show? Babies are a pain in TV. I'd love to read the comics. It's hard to keep up. It's hard enough to keep up with the TV show.
Mnemonic 7 said, I don't read the comics, but I heard there's a character with a tiger pet. Is there?
So, and somebody else says, is that guy looking for the horse from the kingdom? So I don't want to talk too much about the comics that far ahead, because there's a lot of people who haven't read them. But I think that when Rick and Morgan find that farm and the guy's looking for the horse, those of you who have read the comics, I think that is exactly what's going on. I think it's setting up the next town. We know the Hilltop. We know the Saviors are out there. We know Alexandria. But there's more communities out there. And I think, based on the clues from that scene, that this character is actually not from the Hilltop and not one of the Saviors, but I think he's from another place that we know from the comics that's coming up. And he has a horse for a pet, and somebody else at that town has a different animal for a pet. And I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to ruin it. When that happens, if it happens on TV, if they can get the budget for however they have to do it, it's going to be really cool.
I just wanted to point out that I think Rick's being really ignorant and naive this year. From what they all learned and how he doesn't trust anybody, he's very quick to just not get information and just kill somebody. I mean, he's just basically underestimating Negan and anybody else for that matter. There could be other groups that he doesn't know about. Who knows? There might be army guys, a clan of them that are like narcs that are just going out there.
King Mito X. First of all, I like your name, and secondly, I agree, he is getting cocky. It bugs me every single time that Rick has a one-sentence exchange with someone that he should be getting information from, and then he kills them.
It's ridiculous.
It's like...
At the cop thing.
Haven't you heard about Intel? You were a police officer. Ask them questions.
License and registration, sir. Actually, no, you're dead.
Right.
That's what he does.
Do you know you have a taillight out? Boom!
Who's Negan? I'm Negan. You're dead.
Right. Checks out.
What?
Can
ridiculous.
I see your driver's license, Mr. Negan? Please.
I like the coldness of him, It kind of makes his character, pretty badass. But on the other hand, it's like, dude, you gotta be a little bit more smart.
The Walking Dead writers are trolling us. I think they are trolling us. I think they've been trolling us. But the ultimate troll was that damn dumpster dive.
Terrible.
They're on notice, and they know it.
If they would have just had it, cleared up the next episode, I would have been okay with that.
Well, that's the thing. And the next episode was a 90-minute episode.
Oh,
and it's all about Morgan.
Cage. Oh, God.
And he's in a cage, and there's a goat. And then it's like, okay, great. Now that's out of the way. What's up with Glenn? Oh, no, another one. And then it was like 3 filler episodes.
Terrible.
So, yes, the Walking Dead writers are the ultimate trolls.
But this season has made up for, the last half of this season.
Oh, here's a good question. King Mito, can you blame him for everything that has happened? Rick, presumably. I mean, look at Alexandria, right? What was it? Was it Ron that pointed out, we had it pretty good, and then you came to town, and now my entire family is dead.
Yeah.
Correlation?
I think ultimately that was Rick's plan to begin with.
Rick didn't care. He's like, I like your walls.
Oh, God.
I'm going to move in.
I'll pretend like I like you, and I'm going to try to be a team player, but ultimately I'm just going to, you're expendable to me. You're going to die eventually anyway.
There's the right way, there's the wrong way, and there's the Rick Grimes way, which is the wrong way, but with murder.
Oh, my goodness. He's great. You gotta love Rick.
I do enjoy Rick, but he is not a smart man, it seems. Mnemonic 7. I like the dumpster idea though. Put us in the place of his wife. That is a good point, but I think we could have. The idea is that, okay, the dumpster. What the writers have said is the reason we had to wait for the resolution on the Glenn dumpster thing is because it would make us as the audience experience what Maggie's experiencing, wondering if Glenn's coming back.
I guess.
But they could have done that for a week. They could have done it even for 2 weeks. They did it for 4 weeks, and the way they did it, where it like looked so definitive that this guy was killed, and then he somehow shimmied under the dumpster, was just dumb. So anyway, listen, I talk about the dumpster thing a lot because it still hurts. It stings. It cut me deep. Walking Dead, you're making amends. The show has been much better since that happened, but it still hurts. So I'll try not to dwell on the dumpster.
This has been one of the better seasons, I think. Just a lot of action. It's very dark. It's just a really good season.
Our friend here says, Boss Jones, this whole Daryl situation feels forced. And I don't know. I mentioned to you earlier, I love the idea that Daryl now has an arch nemesis, right? It's like, oh, Dwight, my old nemesis. We meet again.
So let me ask you one question. I'm a little bit confused about why they all left at different points. So Carol leaves because I guess she's got her own pretty much vendetta or something. She's just going out. She's leaving because she's
Carol left this.
Carl.
Carol left this note saying that she loves everyone there, and she knows that if she loves everyone there, she's going to kill for them, and she doesn't want to kill for them, so she leaves. The logic doesn't.
It's another bad writing.
It feels sloppy.
Then Daryl leaves because she left. He was going to find her.
So Daryl,
or was he going to find Dwight?
I think what I was getting out of it was that Daryl immediately hops on his motorcycle when he learns that Carol left, and he's out looking for Carol. And the thing is, she left Tobin a note, right? And Tobin's her guy that's keeping her bed warm. And so Tobin takes the note to Rick. So my question is, how did Daryl know that Carol left unless Carol left Daryl a note too? Because I can't imagine that Tobin was on his way to take the note to Rick and stopped and said, hey, Daryl, do you want to read this? So I would like to think that, there's a lot of people that really want to see Carol and Daryl get together. I'd like to think that if she left 2 notes, she left one for Daryl.
It has to be. So how would we have known? Or they don't really mention that Daryl left because of Carol, though.
King Mito says Daryl was looking for Dwight.
That's what I thought, too.
But, see, I wasn't sure.
But no one really... They never really kind of explained
that. But you know what? Whenever Glenn and Rosita... Well, Abraham was going to go out chasing Daryl, and Rosita says to him, no, you stay. I know where he's going. And they went to the train tracks. So I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think you're right. King Mito, I think that Daryl was, in fact, going to look for Dwight. So
but it's just
maybe it was wishful thinking that he was going to look for Carol.
It's just really not smart by any of them after they just massacred and just started a war.
Yeah, you guys are right. He was looking for Dwight. So that's my bad. I guess I was reading into it. Daryl doesn't know Carol left, I don't think. But if he did know, I think he'd be going after her first, I think. Did I read the spoilers about the season finale from the Spoiling Dead fans? I did not read the spoilers, so I'm not sure what they're talking about. But I know what happens in the comics, and I don't want spoilers. I don't really want to know what happens in the comics. It's just that I keep up on this stuff and I can't avoid it. So, and I try to at least talk to people in a way that I can say, hey, there's a really cool thing coming, and try not to name names or be specific.
But I don't read the comics only because I enjoy the series on TV, and I don't want to start diving into the comics. I don't have really time either. That's just my thing.
Yeah, I would rather be surprised. I have the same problem with Game of Thrones. I don't read the books, but I know a lot of people do. And
I read all the Star Wars books. And
it seems like
seeing the new Star Wars, it's like what?
But I read the news, so I'll read whenever there's something about Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead, and then I'll look at the comments because I care what people think. And there's always one guy who puts a spoiler in there from the comics or the Game of Thrones books, and I can't help it. I'm just scrolling through the comments and I read it. And so it always spoils itself somehow, but I try not to contribute to that while still talking about it.
Do you think Carol will die? That's from at Lewis JVR. I don't know.
I hope not. I don't think so. I don't think so yet. I think there's a lot more that's going to happen with Carol and Morgan and their storyline and their opposing viewpoints, and I really don't think they're going to be able to get to that in the 90-minute finale. Even if Morgan finds Carol, I don't think they're going to be able to touch on that enough. So I think that we're going to see Carol and Morgan have a storyline in season 7. That's my guess. Let's see. Comics are good for the season, for off season when you miss the show. That's true. It would be nice if you could read the comics after the season. But now we have Fear the Walking Dead to give us something to do as well. So they're really setting it up for Walking Dead to be a year-round thing, and I am okay with that.
I like Fear the Walking Dead. I think it's pretty good.
It's looking good. Do you guys watch Fear the Walking Dead? I always wonder because it seems like it gets a much smaller audience than The Walking Dead naturally, but it has its moments. I think that pretty much says it all.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
I like it.
We'll see how this one turns out. You know, they're a little bit more experienced. It looks like they're on a boat or something like that.
I like that they're doing things that we've always kind of wondered about.
Yeah, it's different.
The thing that people love about zombie movies and TV shows and comic books, I think, is that everybody naturally puts themselves in this environment, in these shoes. And of course, there's always a guy that says, we're going to get on a boat or we're going to go to an island. And Fear the Walking Dead is finally going to let us see what happens, what could possibly go wrong. And so I'm really excited about that in Season 2. The Walking Dead hasn't really... I mean, the prison was cool. Like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Walled towns, like... But I think Fear the Walking Dead gets to be a little bit more experimental. At least it will be going forward. I think it was a little slow in the
They can afford to do it. You know, they know the fan base is there. They're going to watch it.
Mnemonic says, I'm starting to feel The Walking Dead is reaching its end. Sorry to say. I don't know. It still gets killer ratings, and I think that The Walking Dead's going to be on AMC for as long as people keep watching, which is good and it's bad. It's good because the diehard fans will have something to look forward to for many, many years. The way the show is structured, they can kill every main character and they can cycle in new ones, and even if it's not nearly as good, it'll keep going.
It's like General Hospital.
But the problem is, instead of going out with a bang and going out on top or something, it goes out with a whimper that way. So I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah.
But right now I'm feeling it. Right now this season is good. So let's put worries aside and let's just hope that The Walking Dead continues forever and it's always awesome and that Daryl survives.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Negan is all about and what they're going to do with him.
I can't wait to see Negan.
I can't wait either. Should be good, but yeah, I gotta get going too.
All right, you got to split.
You got to split.
All right, I'll keep talking for a couple
guys.
minutes. Ricky's out.
Enjoy the season finale. We'll talk next week. Ghostbusters, baby.
All right. So who plays Negan? Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays Negan, and you might know him from The Good Wife. And actually, he played Rorschach in Watchmen, the Watchmen movie. And if you just watch Batman v Superman, he plays Bruce Wayne's father in the flashback. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan is an amazing actor. And there's been a lot of conjecture. We all knew that eventually Negan was coming. And there's been a lot of rumors who should play him and a lot of opinions. A lot of people said, like, John Hamm, now that Mad Men is over, he'd be a great Negan. And he would have been. And there's been so many other suggestions. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan, when they announced that he would be playing Negan, everyone kind of nodded their head and said, yeah, that's awesome. Like, we're on board. So great casting, and I hope that the writers don't hold back, because are we talking about future episodes? I'm not sure what you mean, Mnemonic. So Negan is, if that's what you're talking about, Negan is the big villain that they're building up to, that we know we're going to see next week. I don't know how much of him we'll see next week, but he's in the trailer for the next episode, the season finale. and he is the leader of the Saviors. And there was a really cool Easter egg. A lot of people might not have noticed it if you don't know the comics and you don't know Negan already. When Carl, at the beginning of the episode, there's the Johnny Cash song, which was awesome, by the way. And Johnny Cash is playing, and they're showing a montage of everyone. And Carl walks into the armory, and he picks up a pistol. And the pistol, he looks at it, it has a wooden handle, and there's a little carving on the wooden handle, and it looks like a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. And that is Lucille. Negan's signature weapon is named Lucille, and it is a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. And if you remember the episode with the big satellite compound and the Saviors, and our guys went in and they killed them all in their sleep, Glenn and Heath go into that room and they kill these two guys, and they look at the wall, and there are all these Polaroids of people with their heads bashed in. Those guys were victims of Lucille, it would seem, because that's what Negan is known to do to his victims. He's very brutal, he's very profane, and everyone's been asking, when they introduce Negan, how will they be able to adapt this character to TV with all the, the swearing and the violence? So, isn't it boring that they don't have any aim about saving world walkers? I'm not sure if you're suggesting that there should be like a Save the Walkers type program, sort of like a post-apocalyptic type PETA, or if you're talking about them finding a cure. But either way, I'm personally glad that they're not hung up on the whole finding a cure thing, if that's what you're talking about, because that's just not this show. It kind of bummed me out. At the end of season 1, they go to the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and they learn about this disease, and it got too Sci-Fi Channel movie to me. I like that the show's not about the cure; they've just accepted it, and now they're just trying to survive. Did I say PETA? Yes, I'm talking about an organization that would be an advocate for walkers, which we haven't seen. Although we did have Lizzie, she would have been the first member. And Herschel was actually trying to help the walkers back in his barn as well. So I guess you do have people that are thinking about the walkers. Think of the walkers, the poor walkers. They're hungry. Let's see. Joe McRee, you hate Daryl, but he's alive. It is a pity. I would like to know why you hate Daryl. I'm always interested when someone says they hate Rick or they hate Daryl or they hate a character. I always wonder why. I'd really like to know. Whenever somebody says I hate Morgan, I know why. I get it, because Morgan has been he's been a liability to the group. All life is precious. It gets a little old. I get why somebody would hate Morgan. I get why somebody would hate someone like Gabriel. I guess if you hate Daryl, I would assume it's because you think he's overhyped. Because it's not so much that you hate Daryl, but you hate he's so popular, and maybe not justifiably so. Because, let's be honest, this past season, Daryl has not been as great as he used to be. Although the rocket launcher and coming back to Alexandria with the fuel truck, that was all pretty cool. That was shades of old Daryl coming back. But the fact that this Dwight guy keeps sneaking up on him and getting the drop on him, Daryl Dixon in previous seasons would not have allowed that. So I think Daryl's getting a little soft. CDC guy told him this is the human extinction event. Yes. They brought the cure idea back with the mullet guy. Yes, Eugene. And then they squashed it. But I actually liked how they did that, because it was almost like addressing the elephant in the room of why doesn't anyone ever mention a cure? And Eugene says, I have a cure, and then he turns out to be just full of it. And so it's like, now the nail's in the coffin, the whole cure thing is, we don't need to go back to it anymore. And I do watch Fear the Walking Dead. What is it? It says Resra. I do watch Fear the Walking Dead. Do I think that they will meet somewhere? I think we might get hints of Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead, like shared universe hints, but I really don't see the characters crossing over because Fear the Walking Dead is in Los Angeles on the west coast of the U.S. And right now, The Walking Dead proper is in Alexandria, farther east, and it's a big country. The producer also said they wouldn't, but on Fear the Walking Dead, because they're seeing the apocalypse start, there's still media. There's still it's still almost a global society, at least in season one. There's still a military, and so I think we might see something that has like a ripple effect picked up later, almost like an Easter egg in The Walking Dead. Like if we see a newspaper in the New York Times that says something about the apocalypse in Fear the Walking Dead, and later on we see that newspaper on somebody's wall in The Walking Dead. I think that's the way they would tie it together, but I don't think overtly. Although season one, if you remember the Morales family, nobody ever remembers season one, it's so long ago, but the Morales family was part of the original group outside of Atlanta, and when they decided to go to the CDC, the Morales family decided to go their own way. And we have no idea where they went. And maybe they show up someday, maybe they show up in The Walking Dead, maybe they're saviors, maybe they show up in Fear the Walking Dead. So I love that that's like a dangling plot thread, but I also don't feel like we have to get back to it. It's something that they can reach into, like their bag of tricks someday, that would be really cool if the story makes sense. Gabriel he looks like he's redeeming himself. If you saw the sneak peek during the Talking Dead from the finale, Gabriel does look like he's redeeming himself, and I kind of like it. I mean, I was first in line to be saying I hope that Gabriel dies painfully for a long time, but I don't know. I like what I'm seeing about Gabriel now. I like that he can actually change and be useful, and he's playing ball. Sorry, there's a lot of messages. I'm trying to grab it. Joe McRee, sorry it took a while to get back to you on this, about Daryl and why you hate Daryl. You think he was a Darabont character, and now he's just a dummy. So Frank Darabont was the guy that actually adapted The Walking Dead during the first season, and it has his fingerprints all over. Frank Darabont directed The Shawshank Redemption, he directed The Green Mile, and he directed The Mist. And you'll see a lot of familiar faces from The Walking Dead actors that are in these other movies. I forget his name that plays Dale in The Walking Dead season 1 and 2. He's in every Frank Darabont movie. And if you watch The Mist, like everybody's in it. Carol, Andrea, all these characters that show up in The Walking Dead. And they invented Daryl for the TV show, and he's not in the comic books. And so I don't know. I think that there's been different people in charge of the show, and maybe something gets lost in translation. Like you see a lot of personality changes to these characters, and it's not necessarily because the story is setting them up for a change all the time. Sometimes it's just because there's a different guy in charge of the show. But Scott Gimple's been in charge for the last couple of seasons, so we're seeing the most consistency that we've ever seen in the show between like seasons 4 when he took over and now the end of season 6. Why do people keep having conversations in the open and broad daylight? I don't know. There's a lot of really dumb decisions in this show. There have been a lot of really poor choices, like when Maggie decided, hey, I'm pregnant, but I'm going to go off help fight the saviors, and she ends up getting captured. Who didn't see that coming? We all saw that coming. That was dumb. It was just sloppy writing, but they needed to get Maggie to a place where she was captured and Carol was captured for the story, and it's just kind of lazy. Because of budget, sometimes that's the reality of TV. If they're going to have a crazy big finale, they need to cut some costs somewhere. And that Carol and Maggie episode where it's just them with this group of saviors captive, that was in one location with a limited cast, and that saves money. And that's good and it's bad. Sometimes what that means is you get a slow episode, a filler episode. A lot of times that's what it means. But it also means that they're going to put those dollars into a much bigger season finale, maybe in this case. It is 90 minutes. Is the season finale 90 minutes, an extra 30 minutes because they saved money on that episode? It's entirely possible. Exactly. 90-minute finale costs. It'd be funny if Rick is still in a coma this whole time and it's all a dream until the end. It would be funny for about 3 seconds, and then it would be very traumatic. There's another character named Vince in the game. He looks like he could be Glenn's brother. Well, if Glenn goes away, maybe they'll be bringing Vince in. I don't play the game, so I'm not up on that. Mnemonic says, I was expecting Glenn or Michonne to get shot like Denise when they were talking to Daryl. Yeah, because this just happened last week. So people never learn in this show. And it's just the writers. You know, in real life, we would learn to not stand around in the open and let Dwight sneak up on us for like the third time. Do you think next season they will go to another place? I don't think so. I think we're in Alexandria for a while because they're setting up this bigger world. There's Alexandria, there's the Hilltop, there's the Saviors, wherever they are. And if you know the comic books, you know there's some other towns, there's some other groups. And I think that they've really gotten us comfortable in Alexandria, and I don't think we're going to change our scenery, except that we'll be visiting places now. But I think Alexandria is going to be the home base for the foreseeable future. And I'm glad about that because it got a little old with them constantly, like, finding a new place. Like, okay, we got to camp outside Atlanta. Oh, can't stay here. Zombies attack. Now we're Herschel's farm. Oh, no, there's a herd. Oh, now we're at the prison. Oh, there's a governor. It's just like it gets a little old where every season they're in a new place. Terminus, Alexandria. I'm glad they're in Alexandria and we don't have to worry about that. And now they can actually give us new storylines with a bigger world and more characters. Amen. Find a home. They found a home and I hope they stay there for a while. Carl getting his eye shot out, traumatized. You imagine how Carl felt. King Mito says Daryl was supposed to die early on, but he became a main character. That's true. Daryl was actually Norman Reedus auditioned for the role of Merle, and they already knew they were casting Michael Rooker as Merle, but they loved Norman Reedus, and so they basically said, hey, why don't we invent a character for him? And they created a brother for Merle, Daryl, and he was originally intended to die in episode 3. Can you imagine that? He only gets introduced in episode 2, and it's like the end of episode 2. They almost killed Daryl in episode 3. Think of all of the action figures and replica crossbows that they would have missed out on selling. Okay. I don't know if Vince is Glenn's brother. I doubt it, but I haven't played the game, so I can't speak to Vince. Show went through 3 or 4 showrunners in the first 4 seasons. Lucky any characters, any good. That is 100% correct. Truer words have never been spoken. It's almost like this show has been popular in spite of itself, because if you understand how complicated it is to make a TV show like this, and when you have your leader of your show, your showrunner, get fired and replaced over and over again, that makes for bad TV. And so The Walking Dead has not always been great. It's been hit or miss for pretty much its entire existence, although I would say that from the mid-season premiere of season 6 on, it's been really good, I think. But that kind of turnover will really make for bad TV. And the fact that it's been as good as it has been is really a testament to the source material, the crew, the actors. They've really made it work. And I've been doing these Periscope streams on Mondays after the show wraps so that we can all talk about it and we can all have our group therapy. But next week's the season finale. So I'm thinking maybe if you guys are into it, there's so much more about The Walking Dead. There's fun trivia. There's all the stories about how it came to be or almost wasn't. All the characters that were almost killed off early and they weren't. So if you guys are into it, we'll do a whole stream about all the what ifs. You know, Carol was originally supposed to die in season 3 instead of T-Dog. And she didn't. And there's a whole story there. And there's all the things that Frank Darabont was planning to do in season 2 before he got fired. And it's amazing stuff. I would love to see, as much as I like The Walking Dead, I think I would enjoy seeing the what-if version of Walking Dead even more. And because it could have gone in so many different directions. And it's really amazing that it's as good as it has been. So maybe after the finale, we'll have enough to talk about after the finale. But hang in there. Maybe we'll stream some more and we'll talk about that. So, sorry, I missed a lot of comments. And let's see. Yeah, it would have been a mistake if they had killed. I'm not sure who you're referring to, either Carol or Daryl, but either one would have been a big mistake. Because can you imagine if Daryl died in season one and Carol died in season three? Like, who was Carol in season three? She was nobody. She was an extra character that had no backstory. Her abusive husband was dead, and it seemed like that was going to be her story. And her daughter was dead. Sorry, that's obviously her other story. But it's like, I can very easily imagine how the writers would have looked at Carol in season three and said, "We need to kill somebody. Let's off her, because we're done with her." And look what we would have missed out on. She's my favorite character, and she's my favorite character from what happened after that. Considering all of that, like how she went from the abused housewife to actually being like the arguably most valuable member of the group. So I think that Carol is the best character in The Walking Dead. She doesn't have to be your favorite, but I think it's hard to argue against her being the most compelling story. Okay, yeah, killing Daryl that early would have been so dumb. Especially if they created a character because they love Norman Reedus and then to kill him right away. But listen, they made a lot of really dumb decisions, especially early on in The Walking Dead. So think about like I always think about, people forget about it, but season one, it's like the next to the last episode. It's called Vatos, where they find that group of guys. They seem like they're like a gang or something in Atlanta, and they take Glenn hostage whenever they're trying to retrieve Rick's guns in that bag that he left by the tank. And Rick's ready to kill all these guys, and then it turns out they're just protecting a bunch of elderly people that are not well enough to travel. I always think I'd love to see those characters again. Can you imagine if they had revisited them? And actually, I read that if Frank Darabont had continued to run the show in season two, he planned to revisit them and see what happened. And I think what I read was that they were all dead. But, you know, they were really interesting characters. When they had this storyline with Beth in the hospital in Atlanta, I was really, really hoping that they would tie those characters back in somehow. Like, listen, it's a bunch of elderly people that need help. There's a hospital. You're both in Atlanta. Tie the story together. But they never did. So I would love to see what happened to them. But if I never do, it's in my imagination. I can live with that too, because I remember how interesting it might have been. Okay. HG Science Nerd. You met the character who played Ben in season 3. Merle ate his face. He told me he really wanted to do that scene. That was a fantastic scene. I noticed on The Walking Dead. Yes, if you're just joining, this is therapy for zombies. The zombies that stay tuned to The Walking Dead mindlessly every week, like you and me, presumably. Yeah, so someone on The Talking Dead mentioned last night that no main character has died alone yet, or that another member of the group hasn't seen them die. But I would argue that Merle actually did die alone. He might have been, like, the governor was there and killed him, but he wasn't with him. Oh, Sophia. Sophia died alone. That is a good point. I forgot completely about her. HG Science Nerd, good catch. But I would say that Merle probably died alone as well. But the fact that we see him as a walker and he's eating, presumably this guy Ben, I forgot his name, his face, that was a great scene, seeing Michael Rooker as a zombie. So, anyway, let's see. All right, guys, it is getting close to 6 o'clock. So, I've been live on Periscope, and I'm going to hop on a platform called YouNow. And I'm feeling it out here. So, I'm going to continue this conversation on YouNow. The reason I'm doing that is because there's a lot of live streaming platforms now. There's Periscope, there's Facebook Live, there's YouNow. And I'm going to go on there, and I'm trying to build an audience there too, because Periscope's tough. Periscope is very tough to get an audience. What is the name on YouNow? It's Essential TV, and it's all one word. And YouNow is actually a really great platform. It is an app, but you can do it through the web. It's YOUNOW, all one word. But what's great about you now is that you watching, you can click and there's a feature called guesting, where you can request to guest into my broadcast, and I can accept, and then we split the screen, and instead of just seeing my face, which I'm tired of looking at, I don't know about you, but I would get to see your face and everyone else would see your face, and we can actually have a real-time chat, and other people can watch. And YouNow is really cool. They have a lot of good features, but warning: YouNow's audience is presumably. I'm sorry, I overused the word presumably this stream, but predominantly, YouNow's audience is very young. So I actually, when I've done a couple broadcasts on there already, I get a lot of people that are like, "My mom watches The Walking Dead," and it's like, great, can I talk to your mom? But anyway, YouNow has great features, and so let's bring some of us elderly people to YouNow, and by elderly I mean anyone older than 25 years old, because that's pretty much the cutoff. And if you're under 25 and you're watching, no offense, I don't care how old you are. I'm just warning the old folks. You feel like the parent chaperoning the party sometimes. So, Mnemonic, nice talking. Please come back on Periscope because you had a lot to say, and I like that. Rolling my eyes on you now. Yes, sometimes. We got some elderly folks, and like I said, elderly is anything older than 25. Yes, if you're 28, you're elderly on you now. So please join me there in just a couple minutes. I have to go get my power adapter because my computer is going to die otherwise. I earned a follow, and I appreciate that. And I will be back on Periscope next week because I think this works. I'll go live on Periscope at 5 o'clock on Monday after the finale, and we'll probably get on YouNow after, depending upon how this goes tonight. So, HG fanboy, you're 16, but if you watch The Walking Dead, that's all it takes, right? It's all it takes. I just want to talk to people that watch The Walking Dead. So a lot of kids just join because there's nothing else to do and they're bored and they actually maybe have never watched The Walking Dead. That doesn't make for a good conversation. So anyway, enough about that. Please join me on YouNow, younow.com. The user ID is Essential TV. I'm going to tweet out the link, so if you follow at Essential_TV or at EssentialDead on Twitter, you'll see the link. I do watch The Talking Dead as well. I learned a lot of good things, a lot of good trivia from The Talking Dead. So we'll talk about that more. Hopefully I see you in like 4 minutes on YouNow, but if not, I hope to see you next week. And we're going to be sad or angry or both next week. So be prepared. Thanks, everyone.